home, but I'm in law's home. So yeah, I can do these things myself. So yeah, hey,
if it's your mom, if it's your mom's in-law home, it's like yours.
Yeah, exactly. Except I don't have my laptop here. It's even better. I have coffee. I have water, and I didn't have to prepare anything. Perfect.
Like in a all-included hotel.
Yeah,
you have then I don't know how to go. La pulserita.
Lace, maybe. I don't know.
Necklace. Neck is neck.
Yeah, necklace. Necklace. Wrist lace.
Oh, okay.
Maybe. I don't know. Something like that. I don't know. I don't have it, but yeah, like virtually I do. Oh, look, I have it.
Bracelet.
You have one.
So we are live already. Let me share in the specification channel. I'm so lazy that I'm already thinking now we should have another bot that will post the link in the Slack.
That's major laziness. I mean, that's developer laziness.
Don't insult me. Okay. Paste it. Just to clarify, like, so because you made me a host in Zoom, do you also expect me to be the host of the meeting?
I think so.
Zoom says so. It's not me. Actually, who's putting Fathom in the call? Okay, I can. Actually, I can start since I don't think anyone has questions so far, or maybe you do, Sergio, or okay, I don't know. No, don't think so, right? Because you were all silent all the time. So yeah. So all right. So I'm gonna then start myself with something that I have in mind. All right. So you can see my screen, right? I'm assuming yes.
Yes. So, sorry for no audio feedback.
So yeah, thing is that I was thinking, how can we better organize the work that we're doing on the specification to launch version 3, right? And yeah, we had this issue that that Jonas created. Let me try to find it. Actually, I think this one. With this one, I'll be able to find it. This one maybe. And then this one, yeah. So Jonas created this issue, right? Which is this issue and all of the issues below, and even more for each of the templates and so on. So yeah, great stuff, great job. It's a really tough job to do, so I'm thankful that he did it. But the thing is that having this list here is good for tracking. Maybe it's good for us for, let's say, for ticking the boxes whenever the things are done. but it's hard for people to understand, like, okay, how can I help? What's next? What should I be doing next? How can I jump in and say, you guys need help with Studio, supporting V3. Okay, where do I start, right? With this Studio V3, or maybe I don't care if it's Studio or what else, but how do I actually contribute to speed up the release of version 3, right? So how can we make it more visible? So instead of splitting by repo as it's done here, right? So we're splitting by repo in each of these bullet points, let's say, or tasks. What I'm going to propose is that we go in a slightly different approach, and we split, since it's a very big task. Let's say the whole thing is a very big thing. We take a slightly different approach, and that we split. Let's say we split the whole thing not by repo, but let's say by deliverables, by things that can be valuable for the users, or at least for the people, for instance, for the developers, and for the developers contributing to the project, and also for those who are working the documentation, for instance. Why am I saying this? For instance, I'm mentioning people explicitly, people in writing documentation for version 3, because it already happened that they're writing specification examples for version 3, but they cannot really validate it, or it's not easy for them to validate it, right? So Sergio put together an issue for that, and I think that covers, let's say, that's like a good example of what I'm trying to achieve here. So what I'm going to propose is that, or what I'm proposing already is that we split all these things by, let's say, deliverables. So forget about the number of the cycle here, or forget about cycles even. Let's say that forget about it has a number or something, but imagine that I call this enabling validation, right? Early validation of, or enabling validation of version 3, right? What do we need to help those who need to start validating version 3 documents as soon as possible? What's needed? So first of all, we need to, of course, something that we'll need to do is let's finish the specification, right? Which is not yet done. Cool thing is that the spec itself is done, but since the spec itself requires that JSON schema bindings and the parser are also updated, I'm counting them as not, as it's not yet done, because the parser is still missing for this, for two features, for the last two features that we have in the pipeline, which is the multi-format schema support, and traits, the new traits mechanism. So everything is done except the parser support. So yeah, so finishing the specification in this case means just go ahead and finish the parser and add parser support for each of them. Once this is done, cool, it's done. Like the spec is done. We don't need to touch anything else in theory, right? So yeah. And the other thing is that we want to enable validation, right? So aside from adding support on the, aside from these issues that are already created, like this one that we have to update the JSON schema files and so on. Aside from this, let me check. One of the things that we will have to do is we need to enable validation in Studio and in the CLI, because these are the two tools that we're using to let people validate version 3 documents, right? Or at least maybe, I haven't thought if we have another one, but if I wanted to validate something quickly, Studio or CLI should help me, right? And if we do it, even if it's not a release candidate on each of these projects, of course, I'm not meaning that we release new versions of new major versions or anything like that. We're all release candidates. I'm already enabling them to validate using the CLI or using Studio or whatever, right? So that's already valuable. That's really cool. So I'm putting, like, let's say we have, again, forget about the dates. I don't care about the dates here. I'm just using this tool to help me visualize the whole thing. But you know, we're flexible with this. It doesn't have to be up until September 4 or anything like that, right? But let's imagine that is the case, that we're targeting September for this, right? Or early September, beginning of September. Even though we have holidays in the middle, but yeah. What's next then? Then it will be like, okay, so what's next to keep developing this async DPI version 3 support? So the next thing that we will have to do is probably, this is just one of the ways to split it. We could have split this in a different way. Is to probably add support for documentation generation, for code generation, for converting to version 3, right? And I want to clarify something. It doesn't have to be sequentially, so we don't have to finish one cycle to start the second. Again, this is just for us to kind of like visualize it. But of course, we can be working on things of the cycle 2 at the same time of cycle 1. But the thing is that I think it's important that if we focus on helping ourselves with the basic stuff, which is just validating it, like being able to validate it and things in the spec, which is, I think it's pretty basic, then we can then jump into this and say like, okay, we're gonna migrate HTML template and Markdown template and generator so that we can generate documentation. And that also means that we have to migrate the React component because it's what the HTML template is using. So if that's the case, then so this task will be about all these things, right? Support converting to version 3. Again, this is just like me trying to think like, okay, what else we can include in this cycle that is not so much. Maybe it's almost done, by the way. So we could already start offering this in Studio. And I'm not sure if we have a command for this on CLI, but if that's the case, then on CLI as well. And also in CLI, maybe this could be, we could be figuring out what's the best way to implement this in the CLI, like maybe with these flags that Lucas, you and I discussed the other day, about like certain flags, certain commands on the CLI might be migrated, but some others are not, and we can figure out the best way. Or maybe this can be just a separate release candidate of the CLI, and whenever it's done, and that's it. So yeah, I don't care. Whatever way we want to approach this. So yeah, and then we can keep going and creating new cycles or new groups of tasks, let's say, and to come up with, let's say, if we just do this so far in these 2 cycles, this will mean that this 2 will be done. CI and Studio will not be done completely, but JSON schema files will be done completely. This one will be done completely. React components will be done completely. Generator, parser, HTML template, Markdown template, and server API will be done partially, right? Because server API has many more things, many more dependencies. So we have one big task for code generation, but it's a huge, big task. We might not want to migrate them all initially, right? So maybe what we can do here is just include a bunch of them, like, I don't know, 2 or 3 templates, just to show people how you could do it. And then our task here, our job here will be more about going after all the template owners and saying, please prioritize migrating it. Migrating, I mean, so adding support for version 3 as soon as possible, right? And that's it. We don't have to migrate them all, of course. That would be insane. And we don't have to wait until all of them are migrated or supporting version 3 to be able to launch version 3, right? We should probably launch version 3 with some Java templates and Node.js templates, and I don't know. I mean, code generators, documentation generators. We need them, but I don't know. Maybe Go, just to say something, or TypeScript or whatever, or Python, whatever we decide, right? But the problem with server API is it also needs the bundler, which is, yeah, it's the only dependency. So server API is the only one that needs this for version 3 to be updated, right? So to me, it's the last priority here, right? Is the least priority. So yeah. So the cool thing is that what I was saying, the reason I'm saying this is because by doing this, we will have all of this done, or almost all of this done, right? Except server API, which will not be complete. Studio, then we can focus on completing Studio and enabling full support for V3 in Studio. This could be another cycle maybe, or this could be even a cycle of Studio itself. And the CLI, same thing. So we need to migrate, or we need to add support for version 3 on all the commands and figure out a way to slowly migrate this and so on, right? But yeah, again, so that's what I was thinking. So why am I doing this? Right? Why am I doing all these things? Obviously, I don't want to do this myself. I don't want to be migrating all these things myself. I also don't expect that as working full-time on the Postman team, right? We'll have to do all this job ourselves, because it's not our responsibility, and it's also not, let's say, will not be enabling the community to do their part. So what I'm suggesting, the reason I'm doing this is that I'm seeing that there is a big mess in understanding what's needed in order to ship version 3. So I'm trying to put a little bit of order here, like trying to categorize this the best way possible, and using something that will allow us to visualize this in a better way. And also as a way to encourage new contributors and say, hey, you want to help with Async API 3 release? You know what? We have this feature here, or we have this issue here, and we need to add V3 validation support. So maybe on the CLI. So maybe you can pick that. You can pick that issue. And by the way, this is not an issue, not yet. It's not clickable because it's not an issue. It's not a real issue. But we can create real issues on each of the repos if we want to. And we can tell people like, hey, so just pick this one, or just pick anything that is here on the left, because it means that it's not yet started, right? Nobody has picked it yet. And yeah, just assign it to you and work on it. And instead of having to choose from here, right? Because this is cool, but yeah, like where do I start? Because if I come here, for instance, server API, and I choose bundler, then you're probably not helping much, right? I mean, you're helping, of course, but it's not super helpful in the early stages of releasing version 3, right? It's much more helpful if people finish this task of support converting to 3, or finish the parser, or or maybe the React component and things like this, right? So yeah.
Wait, Farhan, because I'm a bit. Something happened.
Sorry, second.
Ah, you stopped sharing.
Yeah, I stopped sharing because
yeah.
I could not see you.
Because you made me super lost. Because you so you're talking about deliverables. You shape it up. Then you talk about prioritization of issues. Then you talk about all these issues one by one. What are you actually proposing?
So what I'm proposing is that we split the things in a different way. So right now, all the tasks are split by repo, right? But not if we want to release version 3 and provide value as soon as possible, not to the end users, but also to other contributors. Not all of them will have the same priority, right? Because, for instance, if I want to migrate, if I want to take the React component task and create the new React component, add support for version 3 in the new React component, sorry. One thing that needs to be done first is that we finish the parser, because the parser is not done yet, right? We need to finish the JSON schema files, right? And we need to release them as a release candidate, so that you're able from the React component, you're able to use the new parser with v3 support, and then add whatever features you need to add on the React component, right?
But how shape it up will help? Like, can you have
visualize?
Can you visualize dependencies as well? Like,
so visualizing it. So the thing is that what we're gonna do here is that on the shape it up here. So forget about the deadlines and so on. We don't respect that. We don't have to respect it.
But I mean, like, how from shape up? I know that React component depends on parser.js.
So that's the thing. So I'm specifically creating tasks that have no dependencies. That's the thing, you know. So let me share again. So I'm trying to split things in a way that we have the least dependencies as possible. So for instance, this one, right? This one, someone might think like this is a blocker for version 3 validation support, right? But it's not. So for instance, adding support on the JavaScript parser for these features can happen at the same time as this one, as we are working on enabling support on CLI and Studio and so on, right? There's a dependency here. I'm sorry, I'm using my finger to point to stuff, like you could see. But there's a dependency here saying like, hey, parser, we need to add this to the parser. We need to add this to the JSON schema, right? So here we can track if those are done or not, right? So there could be dependencies inside this view, right? Inside this only view, right? But not between all of them, right? And yeah, for instance, if I another thing on the cycle 2, for instance. So if what we focus on next is to add documentation generation support, then this will be enabling us on the cycle 3, let's say, right, to come back to Studio and say, okay, so we now have the React component migrated, and we have generator migrated, the documentation generators migrated, so we can now from Studio we can already enable being able to download the documentation, only documentation, not code, because the code will not be done yet. In this case, yes, will be done, but imagine that we only have that, right? So we only have the documentation. So if we focus, like what I'm trying to do is like we have to ship everything instead of going repo by repo and figuring out the dependencies, which is a mess to understand. Let's split it in a different way, not repo by repo. So let's try to focus on providing value in each deliverable. So whenever, so we're gonna deliver something that is not finished by any means, which is Studio. So Studio, for instance, let me show you. So this is something that Sergio did, for instance. So Studio, enable validation only, right? This is one of the tasks. Disable everything except the editor tab and documentation validation and document validation. Sorry, we should use the parser.js release candidate and JSON schema release candidate. Of course, the result of this task is not that this is available on studio.async.com. It will be on a deploy preview URL, right? But people can already use Studio there on that deploy preview URL to paste the document there and validate, right? So we're already providing value as soon as possible. And that will help the docs folks who are right now, they're writing V3 documents and giving them to us. And and I'm like, I think it looks good. I think it's all good, but I'm not sure if you made a mistake or not. So yeah, like enabling these little things will help us, let's say, like set a clear roadmap of to get there. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Like, so for example, like, so when you're showing this issue from Sergio, that's the example of what you want to have, right? Or
yes, this is an example of what I would love to see. That this, you see, like for instance, this issue here that Sergio created on Studio, this could have been created somewhere else. Doesn't matter. Involves the Spec JSON schema repo, the parser repo, Studio, and CLI. Because it's not per repo, it's per value, right? So let's provide a small feature as soon as possible. Where? On Studio and CLI right now. What do we need for providing this small feature on Studio and CLI? The parser and the JSON schema files as well. We need them. Cool. So let's just focus on this, right? We got validation support on Studio CLI. Cool. Next thing. What else? Now we can validate. So what else can I do? I want to enable documentation on Studio side by side. What do I need to do? I need to migrate the React component, right? I need to make React component support version 3. Cool. But if we do it, then let's just not add it to Studio, right? But let's take it the opportunity here that we are migrating the React component, and let's make it let's make the HTML template to use that new version, right? And the generator as well, right? So that we can generate the new HTML template using, I mean, it's the old HTML template, but supporting version 3. And that's already a little bit of more value, right? Because now I can plug the React component on Studio, so I can have validation and the documentation side by side. It's already a little bit more, right, of value. And at the same time, I can already generate documentation with generator, right? So it's a little bit more value. Then another thing we could be doing is, okay, we already have a generator and some templates migrated, like Markdown and HTML, for instance. What's next? So next could be another cool thing that we could be doing is, let's enable people to download code, to generate code from Studio, right? But it's only from Studio, we migrate the templates, right? And it's a small change on Studio to use a new version, right? And you will be able to download the generated code. But it's a small change also on the CLI, and you will be able to download, to generate code from these templates as well, because they are migrated already, right? So like this, slightly providing more and more value until we get there, until we get like to a point where everything is migrated, except of going repo by repo, right?
and going back to the shape app, can you show it for a sec? So on the left, you have that's the finished specification, enable V3 validation support.
These are the features.
These are cycles, not features.
These are the features that I want to have in this cycle. So we have cycle 1 here, right?
But it's one-to-one relation or not?
No, they're independent.
Okay.
They're independent. So I could be working on enabling V3 validation support on CLI, on the studio and all the stuff, right? And at the same time, someone can be working on finishing the specification. If I finish this one before the other one, which is unlikely, but can happen. If this happens, then once this is finished, the only thing that I will have to do is to update the parser dependency on the other one, and that's it. It's a minor thing to do. It's not really a lot. So yeah, but adding validation on Studio, for instance, on CLI, it's not just updating the parser. It's a little bit more, right? It's like, for instance, in Studio, I will have to understand that this is a V3 document, right? And because it's V3, in that case, I should block, let's say, all the panels that are not supported yet, right? Instead of failing, right? Instead of making it fail, I just don't render documentation. I just don't render the outline. I just don't render whatever is not yet ready, right? I don't offer these features. And then we slowly start removing these exceptions. All of this while in a separate branch. I'm not saying master and releasing this to master, right? But we can already deploy this to a deploy preview URL or to a npm package, release candidate package for the CLI, so people can use this specific CLI version. And here I'm thinking more about as contributors, not end users, right? So if I'm writing docs about V3, I would love to be able to validate the documents that I'm writing, right? Without having to ping Fran or Sergio or whoever, right? To validate them visually, because it's easy to make a mistake, right? So yeah, slowly rolling out things instead of going one by one. Because if you go, the thing is that the reason I'm proposing this is, if you look at here, in each of these issues, you have dependencies. So CLI has all these dependencies, right? We need to make it like complete full V3 support on the CLI. We need to migrate all of these things. If we go to Studio, same thing. We have all these dependencies, right? Probably, well, yeah, only these dependencies. And yeah, another one is missing. So we are depending on server API as well to download the generated code. So you have dependencies. This one doesn't have much dependencies. Actually, this one is done. We just need to release it. This one is probably not having a bunch of dependencies, right? It's only a bug. So yeah, not a problem, something to fix. This one has dependencies on the parser in this case.
But like, but what's the problem that it has dependencies?
The problem is that it's a dependency hell here. We know how things are structured because we're working on this full time. But if you ask
but in shape it up, you will also have dependencies.
But no, I'm removing them. That's the thing. If we're working on cycle 1, the only dependencies that you will see is here. But it's here. It's clear. I have to work on this thing. That's it.
No, wait. What do you mean by this? Where do I see that there's a dependency?
It's not that there is a dependency. In order to have V3 validation support, right? I have to implement support on the JSON schemas, on the parser, and then on Studio and CLI, right? So there are dependencies here in between these two and these two, CLI and Studio, but not beyond that. It's not going. I don't have a dependency with server API or with the React component or anything like that, right? That's my point.
What I'm
Dependency
trying
hell
to
is
say is
limited.
that but what I'm missing is because you all the time you talk about like that you can see dependency, but like how you see it, I don't see how do you see that it's clear that they are depending on each other. This 4 elements.
No, it's here. No. That's what I mean. That's what I'm saying. Here, it's not clear that they're depending on each other, but you only have to deal with these 4 and understand how these 4 depend on each other. Only 4.
Okay, but
You know what I
then
mean?
but then let's go further down the line, and then there's this React component that requires
Yeah.
validation and actually parser, and it's I suspect it's in a different cycle, right?
Yeah, because it's not
And
as urgent for us right now. That's the thing.
yeah, but then okay, and the idea is that if something is in cycle 2 and cycle 1 is not completed, you should not pick it up, or
ideally this will be in sequence, right? So once we finish cycle 1, we can go to cycle 2. You
but
can
for
jump
React component, you don't need Studio and CLI.
That's my point. So what I was saying before is you don't need, for React component, you don't need all the things that are in the cycle 1. You can already start if you want to, of course, right? But what I was saying is that you can start in React component. I said it before when I started, like you can work on things on the cycle 2 if you want to. That's fine, right? Before we finish the cycle 1. But you need to be aware that then you're going to find some blockers, right? Like for instance, the parser will not be done yet. Probably yes. We'll see, depending on progress on cycle 1, right? JSON schema files, well, it's going to be done because it's done already, right? So for the React component, it's going to be done. But if you're targeting something else like generator, well, actually, generator will be possible. If you're targeting other stuff like like supporting version 3 or migrating all the templates like documentation templates, code templates, and so on, you can work on this. You probably face some blockers because not all the things are done here on cycle 1, right? But you probably don't face many blockers, so you can parallelize the work if you want to. Now, the reason I'm suggesting that we split it like this and we don't take into account, we don't see it fully as a sequential thing, not fully at least, right? But let's say like if you are doubting of what to pick next to contribute, I will suggest you that pick something from cycle 1 instead of cycle 2 if you want to, right? If you're in the mood, because these ones are going to be more, let's say, or are right now more necessary than having the React component, right? Right now, as it is right now, right? So let's focus on migrating or on having this as soon as possible. So other folks working on other tools can at least validate the documents, right? At the very least, right? So that's why I'm saying this. And then of course you can work on this. I was even planning on renaming these cycles and not putting any numbers, right? So let's not put numbers, so people don't get confused that they have to be sequential, right? Even though we have the dates and so on. But again, yeah, it's a tool made for ShapeUp. So this is not meant for this kind of project management that we're doing here. But I think like forgetting about dates, this could still be helpful, right? In the way that we visualize things. And also like everyone can see the progress here of each of the tasks and say like, okay, so progress here is 0, so I'm gonna pick this one. So I can help push, right? And instead of not wasting my time, but instead of being looking to contribute to, I don't know, the bundler, because I think it's cool. And I just pick one from the list. Like I'm gonna work on the bundler. It's like, no, if you don't mind working on anything and you don't know where to start, don't start on the bundler. start on any of this that we're suggesting here. Like, please, let's focus on this first, then this, right? But of course, behind the scenes, someone can be working on any of the things, of course, right? This is just like trying to set a little bit the direction and organizing a little bit the things. So there's a clearer view of what's missing and what we could be doing, right? Does it make sense?
So I bought the idea of like of grouping by like kind of feature description, but I mean, I still don't see how it's really resolving the dependency issue. You still really have to have the knowledge. You have to click to the issue, go to the issue, read it, and see like what's completed.
The dependency issue is solved the very moment. I mean, not solved, not fully solved, but for instance, you have dependencies in this one here, right? So in order to start with Studio and CLI, you need the other two to be done. So there's a dependency, right?
So the order defines dependency? That's what you mean?
No. What I mean, no, that's just by luck. It was a chance, by chance. So it's not related. Probably, yeah, it was probably in my mind, like, because, or in Sergio's mind, actually, that he wrote first the dependencies and then the actual stuff. So, but yeah, it wasn't on purpose. The thing is that in order to do Studio and CLI, you need to complete the other two. So yeah, there are dependencies. They're not probably not visible here. Not probably, they're not visible here, right? But it's very limited. While the difference compared to having this issue is you're seeing the dependencies of all the things that we have to do, not just one specific feature. But you need to navigate all the dependencies of all the features that need to be implemented in order to fully support version 3 of SNKPI. That's, to me, the difference. So this is unmanageable, right? Because it's long, right? It's a long thing. And each of them has many more branches. Like Server API, for instance, is hell, right? For instance, to have like as an example, Server API is a good example. One might think that you need to do all of this in order to be able to ship version 3, right? But that's not true. Like, you probably have to migrate to a new JS parser, but you probably don't need to supporting the bundler or converting to version 3. You probably don't have to do it initially, right? But you probably have to add support for all these templates and all the templates basically, or some of the templates, at least not all, because Server API is used on Studio, right? That's why. And what I mean is this, is like, we know that Server API is used in Studio, right? And by the way, this is missing, I have to add it. And that's why I know that I need to work on the Server API in order to release version 3 support and make it GA if you want, right? But we don't need to work on each of the things here. We can release version 3 without all of these things migrated, right? So, you know what I mean?
So how it will be visible in Shape It Up? There will be just one item, bet.
Forget about Shape It. So, what I'm having Shape It there, it's the same as having issues here somewhere in the community repo or the Spec repo or somewhere, I don't care, in a specific place, not in each repo, but in one repo, having multiple issues where you have a list of the issues that we will have to be working on, somehow grouped differently, not by repo, right? So grouped by feature, like we need validation. So there's a group for validation. There is another group for rendering documentation. There's another group for migrating to version 3, converting to version 3. So you have different groups of tasks, right? Like actual value that the people could leverage, right? we could do this in GitHub issues. The problem is, the reason I'm doing this here is that if you look at the spec repo, there's a bunch of issues. If you go to Studio, there's a bunch of issues. So it's going to be those new issues that we're going to create, they're going to be in a mess of other issues, right? And they are not really issues per se. It's just like a categorization of other issues. It's like grouping of other issues, right? So yeah, they can be there. But again, we need to somehow like group them and so on and create issues and so on. We can do it. We can do it. The reason I'm suggesting that we go and either aside from that or independently, we use this because here you see the progress of each of the items without having to navigate through all of the issues, right? At a glance, you see how everything is going. I can quickly come here and see if something is stuck here, right, or not, and something should have been moved forward or not. I can change to the other group of tasks. Let's say it's cycle, but let's not call it cycle. It's another group of tasks, right? And I can click here and see if this is moving forward or not, or if something is stuck, right? I can click here and the same thing. I can quickly see if things are moving, right? It's a visual. In the end, it's a visual tool, right? But we can make it work with real issues on top, of course. I just didn't do it yet because I don't want to pollute the repos or one repo with lots of issues, right? You know what I mean? So that's why
the alternative to this, I would say, it's just the GitHub project, right?
Exactly. The backend to all of these things is actually a GitHub project. So all of this is, so Shape.it doesn't have any database. Oops. It doesn't have any database. So it's all here, right? So I created this project here, specification, right? And we can probably be using this. You could be using this as well, right? Thing is that it's a little bit less visual. That's my point, right?
Yeah.
Also, something that you quickly see here is comments and events that happened. Like I can easily see here someone saying, hey, I put up a pull request, or I'm stuck with this, someone can help, please. And I can probably see it quickly, right? And notice it. And this history of messages and events is showing all the comments that people are posting on each of these issues, if they're issues, of course. So it's like seeing all the comments in all these issues in a single place because they are somehow related, right? Not all the comments on all these issues, only the ones that they want to show up here, right? So in the comment, you purposefully have to go there and say /progress, blah, 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 right? You need to use a syntax to make it appear here, right? So yeah, which is gonna change, by the way. We're gonna make it easier. But yeah, it's a good place where you can actually see everything that's happening in a single place, in a more, let's say, structured or organized way. And I think this could help.
I want to say that I like using cycles like in the standard way. So I don't see why we will jump out of the cycles in like ordered cycles, because
yeah.
in this case, so I mean, what we are trying here, or what I see you are suggesting, is to follow like like a value. This is called value-driven delivery, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Whatever Scrum Lucas loves, maybe Lucas knows the word because he loves that. Yeah, value-driven delivery. Yes.
Yeah, something. Yeah, I
like
don't know.
making small deliverables as soon as possible and whatever. So I think it makes sense, at least from my point of view, to keep cycles ordered, just to follow, just to act as a clue for people that jumps into the project or wants to collaborate, to
Yeah.
follow what is the strategy of delivering this and what is the most important thing to work.
So I think you say the right word here. Using it as a clue, yes. Using it as a requirement, I don't think it's useful. So so having cycles sequentially, it's a waterfall approach, right? It's a waterfall approach. So you will be blocking stuff here in cycle 2 that doesn't need to be blocked, right? If someone wants to start working on this, why not? If they have all the dependencies they need solved, like it's the case for support converting to version 3, if the parser is already done, actually, I'm not sure we're using the parser. Are we? Yeah, we are. Yeah. So if the parser is already done, but the cycle 1 is not yet finished, right? Then I can already pick this one, right? I can already pick converting to version 3, so I should not be blocked by the rest of the task on cycle 1, right? So making it a requirement, no. Making it a clue, like I want to, as a way to tell people, like, this is in our opinion, maintainers of the spec,
the roadmap of the.
This is in our opinion, this is the most important. That's why it's here first. Then this is the second most important. But of course, anyone can jump and work on anything they want because they may not even be aware of the whole Shape It project here, right? They might just go to GitHub and pick whatever they want, and that's completely fine. I don't think it's going to happen because we're seeing almost no contribution towards version 3, other than us working full time, and from the people coming from the Google Season of Dogs, of course. But the thing is that as a clue, I think it's a good tool. As a requirement, it's really bad, right? If I'm assuming that, yeah, in theory, we can have as many engineers and developers working on this as many as we want to, right? Like the theory says that we have an unlimited amount of people working on this, right? The practice says that it's not the case. The practice, so unlimited means that if we had 1,000 developers working on this, hell yeah, I will not use this way of working because let's just identify which are the most the biggest dependencies. Just probably the spec, the parser, and the JSON schemas, and so on, and then the rest can probably be parallelized, right? Or mostly parallelized, right? So yeah, no problem. But since we don't get a lot of contributors, right? And they're not even us. We are a lot of people, right? So since we're not a lot of people, what I will suggest here is like let's focus on something, right? Instead of being completing one part here, another part here, another part here, and 1 month after we still have no value to deliver, let's contribute the parts that are going to deliver some value, even if it's a small one, like validating, right? But that's already something, right? And then people can already use it and use it for something, which is it's already okay. It's already validating. It's only validating. Okay, it's only validating, but it's already something, right? If I focus my efforts in the React component now, which is what I was going to do before I started doing this, then I will spend probably 2 months working on the React component. And during these 2 months, I will have provided no single value, right? And probably I was going to be blocked by the parser. So I will probably have to jump into the parser first. So So yeah, and try to help with the parser and so on. So my point is exactly this. Like, let's not make people jump from one thing to another. Let's stay focused on something, and once this is solved, the few people that we are working on this and actually pushing on this, let's move the focus to something else. And it's not one repo or another repo. It's one value, let's say, or deliverable, or call it whatever you want, or one feature, and then another feature. So we start providing some value, right, on each iteration, right? Another thing that happens here is that not by coming to shape it, but by grouping the tasks in a different way, in a way that is not related to repos, but to these deliverables, you could quickly see as a contributor, if I'm looking to contribute to something and I don't know where to start, I will just go to one of the groups and say, oh, this one hasn't been picked up yet. Okay, I'm gonna pick it up myself. And I know that I'm going to the right place, right? Because that's a group of tasks. That's probably it's prioritized because the fact that it's an ordered sequence of cycles here gives you the sense of or the feeling of priority as well, right? Like cycle 1 is the most priority, cycle 2 is a little bit less, and so on, right? Then it gives you a clue on where to spend your time contributing. So it makes it a little bit easier for people to pick an issue and contribute, right? And we've seen this on Studio. we haven't finished our first cycle yet on Studio, and this happened on Studio. I didn't know where to start with all the things that we had to do in Studio. We put these things together, and I only had to tell people, go to this Shape It project, see all the beds, click on all the beds that you see on the left, and so on. And if you see a circle on the left, click on the circle. It will take you to the GitHub issue, right? And if nobody has assigned it to them, and if nobody has requested saying, I'm gonna work on this, then leave a comment and say, I'm gonna work on this. And start working on it. And I only have to explain it once. And then people start picking issues easily, right? But those issues were structured in a way, right, that they're easy to solve. There are super small issues to solve, right? Like creating an icon here, creating a button, adding something to the design system, whatever. Something small, right? That people can pick it up. But if in my intention to migrate to this new version of Studio, right, which is a whole project that might take more than a year probably, right, or around a year. If I tell people, hey, this is where we want to go, this design that I created on Figma, let's try to make this possible. The obvious next question for people is, where do I start? Where do I pick? What do I pick from here? Actually, it happened to me. It happened on Studio that a contributor who was contributing to some of the design system icons and so on. We basically finished all the issues that we had for that cycle. It's already done, right? And the guy came to me and is like, hey, okay, so everything is already in motion, right? So there's nothing on the left now. So everything has been started. So what else can I do? What else can I pick up? And I said, in my effort to try to explain what was happening, is like, okay, can you please go to the Figma design, and if you identify other objects, buttons, menus, whatever, can you create an issue saying, I'm going to create the button X here that I've seen in the design of Figma, and I'm going to add it to the design system. Can you please come up with this and do it yourself? And I'll tell you, like, yeah, this is really cool, this is good, go ahead and work on it. It's not perfect, but it's something. In the meantime, I find the time to create more issues, right? And a week after, I had to pin the guy saying, like, can you want help with this? Are you struggling with this? And the guy told me like, yeah, I'm struggling with this because I really don't know how to split this big design into small pieces, right? I have no idea where to start from. And it sounds obvious to me how to do it, but yeah, I've been around for fucking while, right? So it's normal. But for people who are not so experienced, might be hard, right? And they're willing to help. So it's the same thing. Next version of Studio, which is a big project, and next version of SNTPI, which is another big project. When you have to split it up in small tasks that people can actually pick, turns out it's hard. It's hard to figure out how to split it and which one to pick, right? So that's what I'm trying to do here, to come up with small things that the people can address and contribute, right?
And you clarified two things.
Yeah.
One, how I assign a task. How can
yourself on GitHub? Really?
Yeah, but the way to visualize that in ShapeUp, like how can I see from ShapeUp that one task is assigned? Is it possible?
Not yet. I plan to add this, but something that we've been doing in Studio is that you update the progress of that task, let's say to 10% or something like that, and say, hey, I'm picking this up, or 1%, and I'm picking this up, so it's not on the 0, right?
That's
enough for people to see. That's why I was telling people, click on the circle. It will take you to the well, not this one, because this one is not a real issue yet. But
yeah, that's the other question I have. Like for all of
here,
that doesn't have. Yeah, sorry, go because I stopped you.
No, what I was going to say is that I was telling people, click in the issue, check the comments, right? If nobody has asked that, if nobody has said, I'm going to work on this, then just leave a comment and say, I'm going to work on this.
Yeah, that's not true, because sometimes you don't put the comment because you feel alone, like I feel alone.
Well, man, yes.
So now
what can you do?
Yeah, let's make it official. If we want to assign something, at least for this project.
Yeah, that's what I'm telling people on Studio. Like, if you want to work on something, leave a comment. Also, because if you leave a comment here and you're not part of the organization, right? You're not a co-owner of any repo, right? I can only assign it to you here if you leave a comment.
Oh yeah.
Right, I cannot assign it to you here. Like, for instance, maybe to you, yes, because you are in other teams. But if I want to assign it to Ashish, for instance,
you can assign to me because I'm owner, I guess. But
because you're a co-owner of the Spec JSON schemas as well. So yeah. But if you were not, you probably it's picking it up because you're part of the organization. So probably you can. But if I try to, for instance, Samir, right? It's not there, right? Oh, it's here. So yeah, because I have him added to one of the projects. Sorry, so I forgot about that. With triaging permissions on Studio. So yeah, that's why. That's why it's so he has triaging permissions to be able to rearrange issues on the projects and so. So yeah. So that's the thing. If you leave a comment, then your name will appear here, and I can assign it to you on GitHub.
Okay. The other question related to this that I think it's important for people, especially for owners, is, should we create an issue for all of those? Like the current screen that you are showing, the only one that has an issue is the first.
Yeah, I think we should. I think yeah, we definitely should.
I also believe, because you can, if you add the progress individually, it will show properly here.
yeah, we need to show it, because if we don't show it here, if we don't create this as an issue, then nobody can leave a comment there.
Yeah.
Because there's no issue, right? So then you will not have intermediate steps. You will only have not done, done.
Yeah, that's the point.
Right? And no, and everybody will have to leave comments here on that main issue, which could become a mess, because the conversations might be around.
What are you talking about?
Studio.
Oh,
so,
fuck! I thought you were.
So,
yeah. Sorry for
so
the
yeah.
bubble.
So they should become. I'm not doing this on purpose, because I wanted to validate this with all of you. Like, I think this could be a good idea, but I think that if we end up choosing this way of working, this should become issues, definitely. And even finished specification is not an issue, but it should become an issue, right? In my opinion, even though this one is not so important, because the actual work happens on these tasks, not on the group itself, right? So yeah, like here, like there shouldn't be so much communication here, right? The things, the communications will happen on each of this, right? If they were easy, of course. So yeah, you can probably add some updates here about something, but yeah, like not necessary. It's not necessary, because ShapeIt is going to go through all of this, and it's going to update the progress here, and it's going to show all the comments here, right? So yeah, you don't have to work on the parent issue. You don't really have to comment there if you don't want to. So yeah, but yeah, definitely they should become issues if we want to maximize the communication, let's say.
Thank you.
I don't see Lucas, but Lucas will be probably like I wasn't seeing your face, Lucas, and I was like,
I wasn't sleeping the whole conversation, I can tell you.
Yeah, probably. I know that he doesn't like this
still sleeping
stuff. But yeah,
I don't like what?
This kind of project management stuff.
No,
like Scrum and
I told you at the beginning, I like if there's gonna be one link to visualize, I like it. Doesn't matter what the tool is. I'm just questioning, because I don't think it's solving the dependency issue. You're still gonna have to click and go through and navigate. So it's definitely not the advantage.
The whole thing, it's partially solving the dependency issues. That's the thing. So if you look at the whole project, you have many dependencies. If we choose a small part of it, then there will be dependencies, but many, like way less dependencies, because it's just this part. You know what I mean? So right now in this issue that Jonas created, using all the dependencies, you have to click through all of them, right? So what we're gonna do in using this approach is that we know all the dependencies and how everything works, we're gonna cook it so it has the less dependencies as possible. So whenever someone is gonna work on something, they will face this problem the less as possible, right? So they face the less dependencies as possible, and they will not have to, like for instance, like I said, there's a dependency between server API and bundler. But if I'm gonna work on adding validation support on CLI and on Studio, that dependency is not relevant to me, because I'm not working on that yet. You know, so the dependency is still there, but I don't care about it yet. Not yet. I will care in the future once we get to address the server API stuff, right? But in the meantime, while we are addressing validating a file, I don't care about those dependencies. I don't need to see them yet. That's my point. So that's how it's solving it. It's hiding some dependencies because they're not important now. You know what I mean? So we're going in steps instead of trying to tackle everything at once.
is there that can I the view of the progress and completion, is it also available per bed, or I have to go
The what,
through all
sorry?
this? So on the left side you had bets. On the right hand side you had the visualization in cycles. Do I have a view where I can actually see, for example, without cycles, everything, the whole progress? Because I basically don't care about the dates and the cycles. And is there also a view where I can click on one bet and also don't have to go through all the cycles if all is completed or
No,
not?
there's nothing like that, because I mean, the tool is intended to be used with ShapeUp approach, and in ShapeUp, you don't have two cycles at the same time. You only have one cycle at a time, right? The next cycle is not yet decided, so that's why. But given that, that's why it's not. I don't know if you hear my daughter screaming and crying. So.
Big time.
But so what I was saying is that that's because ShapeUp, that's why the tool doesn't have that, because ShapeUp doesn't work like that. But what we can see that is going to be merged probably today or tomorrow is the progress. On the left side, you could see all the bets, right? So you will be able to see the progress on each of the bets without having to click on each of them to see the progress, right? So you will be able to quickly see on a given cycle, on cycle 1, I see all the progress of each of them, right? Without having to click anywhere, but only the ones in this cycle. If you want to see the ones in the next cycle, then you have to go to the next cycle, right? So, well, that's why, because in ShapeUp, you don't have you probably have the next cycle, but the view is very different. Let me try to see if I can show you an example of how it looks like with another. I'll share the screen as soon as I find it. So Studio, for instance, I think it's gonna be a good example. Although I'm not sure we have another cycle yet. Yeah, it's great. Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen. It's funny, the iPad warns you like, you're gonna share your whole screen. 3, 2, 1. It's like, come on, share the screen already. So this is the case of Studio, for instance, right? So if you look at the next cycle, this is the view, right? You don't have progress because these are pitches, right? These are not bets. So we are pitching ideas for the next cycle right now. And at some point, they will be selected or rejected, right? So we will decide like, okay, so this is going to the next cycle. If another one appears here, is this one not. Another one appears here, is like, yeah, this one, yes. So this is the view so far, because this cycle hasn't started yet, right? And because it hasn't started yet, there's no progress, because you shouldn't be working on it because the progress hasn't. That's ShapeUp stuff. And the problem with this is like, I know that we're not doing ShapeUp, but the tool, the tool might be still useful for many of the things that we need to solve, right? Even if we're not using ShapeUp. So yeah, that's it. That's why you cannot see it, and that's why it doesn't make sense to see like the progress of each of the bets for all the cycles, because the very moment the cycle is finished, this is either dropped or moved to the next cycle, right? This is either not dropped, this is either complete, and therefore it's not interesting anymore, or it's moved to the next cycle because it's not finished. In real ShapeUp, if you don't finish something, you drop it, but we're not gonna do this. So yeah.
So you mean
But
the
what
bet?
we will be able.
So once the bet is completed, it will disappear from here?
No, it will just, so what we're working on adding, it's already, we have a pull request, so today or tomorrow will be merged. So there will be an indicator here of the progress of the completion, right? Here in this card. So you will see a line like 80% or whatever, right? And then you will see that the line is here until the end and it's green, then it means it's completed, right? Something like that. So you will see instantly if something is not completed. Like this one, for instance, will show a full line, probably green, right? I haven't seen the design yet, so I cannot say. This one will not, right? This probably will be, I don't know, somehow red because it has 2 items before the 50%. So, and it's already late, right? Probably. So yeah, this one will be completed and showing the full line in green, and this one will be in red. The red line here with 20%, or in this case, 0, 1 pixel, right? Something like that. So yeah. But if you want to see what's on the next, like what's the completion state of the next cycle, then you just go to the next cycle. Not in Studio, obviously, because not the case. But I think, oops. Messing it up. I'm not sure if it's 21 or 22. Yeah, 22. So yeah, so here, since we have the future cycles already enabled, you could see the progress here instantly, right? If something is done or not. So we can even, I'll be happy to show the progress here, maybe like, because this one is 100%, this one is 50%, and this one is 100%, then 100% plus 100% plus 50% divided by 3, the total progress is X. Could be done as well, but per cycle. We actually, I didn't tell you, but we added support for not having dates at all. So the dates disappear and the cycles are just group of tasks. I tried to do it like this. But I think we're going to remove this from the Shape tool because it's really making it a mess to maintain. It was just really for us. Like you shouldn't be using this tool if you're not doing ShapeUp, right? Probably. We're using it as because we have nothing better right now, but yeah, that's not the aim of the tool. By the way, we're getting contributors on ShapeIt. Whoops.
I just submitted an issue for a few minutes ago.
Yeah, and
I'm just complainer, I'm the official
you're the complainer. The complainer.
But I made my first PR the other day, so I got
yeah,
merged.
exactly. So, the link is wrong. It's pointing to my to my repo. Oh fuck! Good to know. So this is ShapeIt app. ShapeIt app. So yeah, we got the pull request. This is what I was talking about, the bad status completion, right?
The bad thing here is that you cannot see the deploy preview because of the authentication with GitHub.
Yeah, that's something that we have to figure out as well, because of the authentication of the GitHub app and so on, and the deploy preview URLs. But yeah, I have an idea on how to make it work, but that's another topic. This is a Spec 3.0 call. So yeah, if you have ideas on how to improve it for our case as well, let me know, because yeah, it's open source. It's controlled by us. So
yeah, this is actually why I submitted an issue, because
Yeah.
meanwhile you were showing this, I noticed that navigating through cycles, for example, was like a pain.
Yeah.
Because if they are not sequentially, like how can I go to the 4 or whatever without having to click one by one?
Yeah.
No, but yes.
So yeah.
But globally, I like the idea to. We have something in place. It's gonna improve, especially for people that comes, and it's like helping contributors to start contributing, potential contributors. So I like the idea, and I'm happy to implement it.
I think we can give it a try. What I'm trying to propose here is that we have nothing to lose. So let's give it a try. If it doesn't work for us, we drop it. That's it. But so there's no compromise here. So just I think this can improve the visibility that we have, and the visibility but not visibility for, let's say, like visibility for the manager or something like that, but not for the managers. But like visibility for even for people who want to contribute. Like, okay, this one is not yet done. I'm gonna pick it up. Among a bunch of them that are available, I'm gonna pick this one because yeah, it looks like a priority. So it makes it easier for these people as well. And so it's visibility in that case, right? That's what I mean. And I think it's positive because when you are creating a bet, in this case, a bet issue on the left, you really need to think about how can we provide some value with the next step, instead of let's just migrate the tool. Okay, but yeah, once we finish everything, cool, yeah, sure. But we can start providing value before we finish everything, right? So that's my point. So even we can release version 3 without having to finish everything, right? Like I don't think we have to finish, let's say, Nat's code generator or I don't want to say that Nat is not important, but we probably don't need to have all the code generators migrated in order to release version 3, right? I think we should have a bunch of them so people can already try it out. JS and Java and Python, something like that. But that's it. Not all of them. Not all of the Java, maybe one of Java, one of Node.js. So that's my point. Like, completion is not the same thing as release date, right? So we could be releasing version 3 even before we complete everything, right? Fully, right? We can, and this, by making these bets or groups of tasks, it's forcing us to think about how we want to group things together to deliver value as soon as possible. And I think that's positive. Either it's sacred or it's GitHub issues or whatever, I don't care. But it's forcing you. Okay.
Okay, 30 minutes passed.
Yeah, I've said it. I was going to be fast, but no.
Will you later ping with the recording folks from the docs folks? Because you're not tomorrow, right? On the call. Or will you talk about the docs folks?
Yes, I will be. Yeah, I will be. Yeah.
I'm not gonna be able to join. But all I wanted to say is that I found several things always like same issues in all the documentations that it seems it's not very clear that they are working with V3 or so, like they provide most of the examples based on version 2. And the documentation mostly is based on version 2. So I will. Should I write this in the meeting agenda, and you will discuss even if I'm not joining, or
just write in the docs channel, because they will probably, like, the first thing I already have in my mind is which issues you mean exactly.
I wanted to do
Yes.
that, but I didn't want to sound like I don't know how to write it without sounding like not
A
aggressive, but
complainer.
yes, again, it's like
Like sounding like a complainer.
okay. I will try to give my best. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Just
Really
write
nice
that,
and-
like, that you see the issue in some, unless you see it's just one author always. So just
No.
Because I had
Yeah.
come on.
Yes. Just write on the docs channel. Don't wait for calls or things like that. It's not needed. Sometimes it's just a message is enough. So yeah. Maybe
it's only
it's just
GSOT, sorry, the ones that are writing, the ones that are writing documentation for V3, or
I think so. Yeah.
Sorry, in docs channel, they are all there. Yeah.
no, I'm asking who, if it's only Google Summer of Docs people who
No.
are writing.
Not
No,
only. Yeah.
there are also few folks from the mentorship.
Okay, yeah, because I have a bit of mess sometimes. Okay, yeah,
But it's
thank
all
you.
Alejandra is coordinating that.
I will ping Alejandra then. Oh, well.
All right. See you then.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Take care.
Take care. Lucas, you have to finish the call.